So today I'm giving a kind of overview. What are the biodegradable plastic and how their benefits and the main challenging if they are used as a post-consumer packaging waste. So mostly the discussion, yesterday discussion for those of you who followed the yesterday training, we talk about a lot the reducing, how we can reduce and reuse and recycle the plastics. But the composting is also the part of the waste management. And I choose this hierarchical scheme because here the recycling and the composting is located in the same level. And as we discussed yesterday, if possible, where possible, we should encourage reduce the source of the material at production and designing the materials. And we need to reuse.
Ilke, sorry to interrupt, but for me, your slides do not change.
I have not changed. So can you see the source reduction slide?
No, but I'm maybe the only one.
I'm just moving now. Can you see it?
It does not move.
Is it moving along?
No.
I don't know why. Let me, try again. Sorry. I'm sorry for that. Now?
No.
No? Okay. Let me try one more thing. Now?
Yes.
You see in this mode, right?
Yes. This is perfect now. Thank you.
Okay. I think, yeah, let's continue in this way. I hope it's visible for all of you. But later on, we will also share the presentation.
I still see the first page, sorry.
I am in the second.
Have you switched to the second page?
Okay. Yeah.
I see the second slide.
Okay, that's great. This is the right one.
It's working now.
Yeah, the source reduction, I mean, as we discussed for the waste management alternatives, composting can be somehow be equally important with the recycling if you are considering the very heavily contaminated food packaging waste. So if you have the food packaging waste heavily contaminated with the food, and it's very challenging to recycle them. So in this case, the composting and compostable packaging is gaining a lot of importance. If we move to the second slide, I think this is the third, I hope now is moving along. And if we just concern and see what is the bioplastic definition, how we define the bioplastic and how we classify it. And the term bioplastic actually is most cases is a great confusion because it is a very big umbrella, and under the bioplastic umbrella we have three main groups, which are bioplastic that are non-biodegradable but bio-based or partially bio-based. And the second bioplastic group under the bioplastic is the bio-based and biodegradable, as you may see in the intersection. And the third group of the bioplastic is the one that are biodegradable but fossil-based. So the bio-based polymer are actually the polymeric materials. It doesn't mean they are environmentally friendly or compatible or fully biodegradable. So it needs to be really screened out. And if we look at the biodegradable polymers itself, so they can be either fermented polymers or can be synthesized chemically from the bio-based monomers. And the example for this, the polylactic acid. And the other group is chemical synthesis from the petrochemical monomers, such as polycaprolactone. And the biodegradable plastics, by definition, needs to be mineralized under the action of the microorganism through the enzymatic action into the carbon dioxide, water, and methane if the biodegradation is carried out under the absence of the oxygen and the biomass. It is always necessary to give the extra information and indication about the biodegradability, in particular for the condition where the process takes place. So bioplastic generally used as an opposite of the polymer derived from fossil resources, but this is not the true in all cases. So as I said, bioplastic is creating a great confusion, sometimes misleading. So that's why we encourage not to use the bioplastic as a generic term, but giving the details for the bioplastic you would like to mention. So it can be bio-based, biodegradable polymer. Bio-based polymer, which is similar to the petro-based ones, does not imply any superiority compared to the, it is bio-based, it is petroleum counterpart respect to the environment, unless the comparison of the life cycle assessment is favorable. How we define how we define the bio-based carbon content. So for the definition and the measurement of the bio-based content, we use the carbon-14 content by isotope analysis, which is aligning with the ASTM and EN standard. And the bio-based materials are derived in whole or partially from the biomass resources. And there is no any regulation telling that the labeling needs to define or instruct the bio-based content, unfortunately. So you can maybe on the market see the plastic that are labeled bio-based, but without giving the percentage of the bio-based content into the whole matrix. So the biodegradability or compostability, actually they should not be interchangeably used because they are two different terms. So not all biodegradable plastic are compostable. So compostable plastics are biodegradable. The biodegradation, by definition, doesn't require any time frame and the specific conditions. So that's why the composting or the compostable polymers are defined by the conditions. I will just show you the conditions later on. And these composting can be at the industrial level, home level, in the soil, so soil biodegradation, and the liquid media. So the biodegradation process takes place at the three main stages. At the first stage, we call the biodegradation, so which covers the log phase of the biodegradation process, where the microorganisms attach the surfaces of the polymers, followed by some environmental stress, such as mechanical, physical, and the chemical changes of the polymer. At the second stage of the biodegradation, which is called biofragmentation, the biopolymers start to be degraded to the oligomers and the monomers. At the last stage of the biodegradation, which is assimilation, and later on, the latest stage is the stationary phase. The biofragmentation of the compounds are metabolized and converted in the end products and biomass. If you look at overall the biodegradation mechanism, so we divide it in mainly the abiotic and biotic phases. So abiotic phases is more related to environment. It can be mechanical, thermal, photooxidative, and the chemical degradation. So those are accelerating the abiotic phases of the biodegradable polymers. Once the abiotic phases is completed, but also is important to note that abiotic and the biotic phases is subsequently, and also the mean, it can be happened in the meanwhile. So we cannot really differentiate the two phases. Somehow they are integrated. And at the biotic phase, where the microorganisms are playing the role by enzymatically degrading the polymers. And if you look at the right picture, you will see the enzymatic oxidation or enzymatic hydrolysis. The polymer chain is undergoing the further process to hydrolyze it to oligomers and the monomers. And these monomers and oligomers are used by the microorganism to produce the carbon dioxide and the water. There are many factors affecting the biodegradation process of the polymers. So this could be related to polymer chemistry of the polymer, nature of the polymer, but also the molecular weight of the polymers and the temperature, the surface properties, solubility, hydrolysis of the polymers. Those are quite important factors impacting the overall biodegradation process. So that this work is actually recently done by the Professor Rafael Aras group at the Michigan State University. And they look at the hydrolytic degradation of the PLA, because PLA has a exposure to the hydrolysis at the important level. And the hydrolysis, as I just showed you, hydrolysis is the initial part of the biodegradation. Hydrolysis of the PLA under the certain condition over the time is happening by fragmenting the chains of the PLA. And these chains is getting smaller and smaller during the time and making the oligomers and monomers. And is important. Another important criteria is that crystallization of your polymer, because the biodegradation starts using the amorphous part of the polymer. Once amorphous part is consumed, crystalline parts start to be degraded. So there is a two subsequent mechanism has been happened during the biodegradation of polymer, and the crystallinity ratio, crystal morphology, crystal kinetics of your polymer is quite impactful on the process. And this is why, I mean, having said all these crystal kinetics, this is very important to design and engineer the polymers for the fast biodegradation. Design of the polymers that are robust but durable in use, but they should be also degraded once they are discarded after post-consumer processing. And one potential tool to address this, to modify the degradation profile of plastics, in particular, modifying the crystal structures. And if you quickly look at the composting process, So this is the routine, usual composting process that follows the 4 phases, mesophilic phases, that happens between the 25 and 40 degree and lasts few hours to few days, where bacteria exothermically degrade your organic compounds. And following the mesophilic phase, thermophilic phase is taking place at the higher temperature where biooxidation occurs, and this process takes from the few days to the several months depending on your biodegradable polymers. And after these two mesophilic and thermophilic phases, cooling phases takes place after the organic compounds are consumed and the compost becomes more stable. And afterwards, the maturation or curing phases are following. And the industrial composting is the one approach, actually the most important approach that that should be considered for the biodegradable plastic if they are certified as a compostable plastic. How the process at the industrial composting, if we quickly look at what happens during the composting at industrial level, materials collected from curbsides and sorted to remove any large contaminants, and the feedstock, which is mix of the kitchen waste, municipal organic waste with the compostables, are mixed at the right proportion. This is important to have the right proportion because one of the factors impacting the composting is the carbon nitrogen ratio. So the carbon is needed for the microorganism to use to have the energy, and the optimal carbon nitrogen ratio is already defined, and to make this balance is proper, I think food waste is quite important because the food has a lot of nitrogenous components. So, and assuming that your bioplastic are rich in carbon and your the food is rich in the nitrogen in compounds, so you can have a good balance. And after the mixing at the right ratio, the feedstock is arranged and stayed in the piles and mixed frequently for the good aeration. And then the active composting stage is carried out to ensure the ideal condition for successful breakdown by the microorganism. Then the compost is cured and screened for any remaining contaminants and becomes ready for commercial use. The composting, how we measure the composting. So the right way, the approach to measure the degradation, biodegradation, is by using the composting reactors. So these reactors is filled by the compost, and you mix it with your compostable packaging material, and by the time you screen the carbon dioxide evaluation. And this test actually is most known and accepted widely. But other than this, also mass loss can be monitored. Mass loss of the polymers over the time can be monitored, but there is some disadvantages because some accidental loss can happen for the small pieces in the biodegradation medium. So this is not very accurate way to observe the biodegradation. These techniques can be somehow complement to your carbon dioxide evaluation technique. Physical properties is one of the approach. We can visually inspect the changes on the polymer surface and the color. And chemical also properties mainly the molecular weight disruption and the reduction of the polymer over the time can be observed, measured, and correlate with the carbon dioxide values at the end. So we have the calculation, we have the equations to calculate the disintegration phase and the overall biodegradation. So you can later on access and see those equations. And we have to follow the standards. This is very important. And in the literature, when you look at the studies that has been done for biodegradation are very varied. The main reason is that they don't follow the same protocol. And if you change your protocol, you will result in the different results, different findings. So that's why it's important to follow the specification according to the standard. So industrial compost, you can see what kind of standards are accepted, are approved for the plastic or the packaging materials. We have the standards at the EU level, we have the American standards, so you can see all standards for the different level of the composting. And yeah, as we mentioned, we have the different level of the composting. But once the composting is done, and when we have the ultimate biodegradability result, and this is in most, I mean, according to the two standard, it should be 90% of the maximum biodegradation respect to the reference in the 6 months. The ecotoxicity test on the organism needs to be also carried out. This is very important to take a look. And this is actually a part of the specification standard. So this is a kind of compulsory. You need to have this ecotoxicity test as a part of the composting specification standard. But when we look at the literature, in the literature, most of the studies are done for biodegradation, but with lacking of the ecotoxicity test. So the evaluation of the ultimate biodegradability, I mean, depending on the standards, but if you use the quantification of the carbon dioxide in controlled compost condition, according to a European standard, EN 14046, it should be 6 months, and the percentage should be more than 90%. According to the reference sample, which is cellulose. And for validation of your test protocol, reference substance needs to show the biodegradation more than 70% in 45 days. And if it is in the soil, so the test period is 1 year, and the minimum biodegradation, should be more than 60%. And validation, for the validation, reference sample needs to show a biodegradation more than 60% in 6 months. And if we look at the very recent study carried out this year, so you see we have the here, if you get closer, we have the commercial, some of them are commercially available biodegradable plastic. And if you look at the orange ones or the pink one, which are bio-based biodegradable, the purple one is the fossil-based biodegradable, but in both are the biodegradable. So you see the biodegradation is really changing from environment to environment. And some of them are labeled and approved as a home composted or industrially composted, but some of them, in particular, if they are biodegraded in the marine environment or in the water environment or in soil, they are not fully biodegradable. So this is why is very important, in particular for the flexible or the rigid packaging, I mean the food packaging materials, post-consumer food packaging materials, they need to be treated and biodegraded in the managed facilities, in the defined conditions. And again, this is a very similar findings from the 2 years earlier study. And as you see, and the PLA is industrially compostable, but not compostable at home composting conditions, right? And even not compatible with the other biodegradation conditions at the soil or fresh water. But if you look at how the conditions or how the biodegradation ratios at the biodegradation acceptance at the industrial composting, most plastic, biodegradable bioplastic are compostable at industrial level. So that's why they have a pass, they have a green okay for the managed environments, in particular for industrial composting. And as I mentioned, ecotoxicological evaluation is quite important. So evaluation of the effects of compost on the growth of the two types of the plants needs to be done. Yeah, you can read the details, but less than 10% mortality needs. This is another criteria in the toxicological evaluation. And yeah, we just discussed it. So there are mainly two different biodegradation techniques used. One is the weight, based on the weight loss. The other one is the carbon dioxide evaluation. But the carbon dioxide evaluation is the right one to evaluate and correctly assess the biodegradation of the biodegradable plastic. But weight loss can be complement to it, but not can be replacement for the carbon dioxide evaluation. And most of the literature is based on the reduction at the weight, yeah, compared to the carbon dioxide evaluation technique. That's why we really need to revisit our techniques and maybe redone those biodegradation tests by evaluating, by screening the carbon dioxide generation during the testing. And very recently, in a couple of years actually, starting probably 2021 too, the composting is also proposed to couple with the anaerobic degradation or anaerobic digestion. There is two reasons for this. The one reason is that because anaerobic digestion is mainly done for the biogas production, for methane production. And is thought that if the municipal waste, food waste, bio-waste can be coupled with the biodegradable plastic, can enhance the methane production. So this is one idea that can lead to this kind of studies. And here in this study, cellulose acetate is mixed with the food waste at the same ratio. And the two stage, at the first stage after the anaerobic digestion, liquid digestate is collected, and the rest is sent for the active composting at the 58 degree. And in the similar study, they mixed the poly-PBAT and the PLA bags with the food waste collection, but after the anaerobic digestion, they didn't remove the plastic, so there is no plastic removal strategy was done in this study, unlike the previous study I showed you. And when we look at these two studies, actually, what they found it, they mainly found it biodegradable polymer does not enhance the biogas improvement. And actually, the residual time for anaerobic digestion is getting longer if the bioplastic is included in the anaerobic digestion, because the thing is that residence time for the biodegradation of the food waste and the bioplastic compostable plastics are not same. So you don't expect your plastic, biodegradable plastic, is degraded at the anaerobic digestion. So they can maybe just get they can accelerate, or they can make some fragmentation for the compostable packaging at the anaerobic digestion, but not fully biodegradation happens. And what also they found it, food waste co-digestion greatly deteriorates the polymer hydrophobicity. So polymer hydrophobicity is affected by food waste because it's getting the more hydrophilic. And the polymer after 55 degree shows at the composting conditions, shows the better biodegradability. Yeah, as I mentioned, the aerobic treatment, pre-treatment before the composting can help for the better biodegradation. But it doesn't necessarily we need this combined process. Another challenging actually concern now, if you mix two, polymer fragmentation somehow can be happened at the anaerobic degradation level, and they can form the microplastics, and this microplastic can contaminate your digest state after the anaerobic digestion. So this is very big challenging actually. And more research needs to be done in this context. And
sorry to interrupt you, Ilke, but we are getting a bit out of time.
Yeah,
are you going to
I will just wrap up.
2 minutes? Okay.
Yes,
thank you.
I will just wrap up. Yes. So what happens actually if we look at the consumers? So because this is very important, we are talking about the recycling, talking about the consumer, but how the composting, but how the consumer perceive and prefer those approach. And this recent study actually look at the biodegradation. Look at the plastics, the blue one, and the durable one, the orange one, and the biodegradable one. So they asked the consumer to rate them, and when they rated the biodegradable plastic at the most positive score. So this is only one study I just put here as a representative, but when I look at the consumer studies, and most of the consumer perceive the biodegradable food packaging very positive. And you see that this is the reason. And we have quite a bit commercially biodegradable plastic recently on the market, or they are designed for the food products. And microplastic, I don't have probably time to discuss, but microplastic is a very big issue, and then we can find the microplastic everywhere: food, water, in the bottled water, in our blood. So it's very clear and obvious that the recent studies shows we have the microplastic everywhere, but doesn't mean we have the microplastic from the biodegradable plastic. And it is, I think, my main conclusion is that for the microplastic, and one of the study actually just compared what happens if they degrade mechanically and photooxidatively biodegradable and conventional plastic, and actually what they conclude that the most problems associated with conventional plastic are also associated with biodegradable plastic, but this needs to be done in situ biodegradation conditions, because the biodegradation, this is very obvious that if you have the biodegradable plastic, the microplastic generated from the biodegradable plastic are less persistent than your non-biodegradable fossil-based one. So this is very positive actually for biodegradable packaging, because even they are in the landfill, they are not resistant. They will be degraded at some point compared to the conventional one. But more studies needs to be done. So yeah. And one of my main takeaway, actually, we need to get and have more certified compostable plastic on the market for the food packaging. This is very important, and because even if you have the biodegradable plastic, compostable plastic, contaminated to some food, it doesn't really matter as long as they are composted. And this is very actually a kind of, to me, a step ahead compared to the other fossil-based plastic. Yeah, this is my last slide. Thank you very much.